6 months after walking out of prison, Sang-yeob, Won-jun, and Sung-young tasted freedom again, right alongside Woo-sol. They stuck close, tied by a loyalty born from tough days behind bars. Together, they pushed to rebuild their lives, try to leave the darkness of their past behind. Cha Woo-sol found his way back into the world by working at the same gym as Jo Sang-yeob, both driven by the same hunger for martial arts. Won-jun juggled hard labor at construction sites while studying for his equivalency exam, fighting to carve out a better future. Meanwhile, Sung-young finally brought his old dream to life, running a pizza food truck that quickly became the center of his pride. Even as he moved forward, Woo-sol never forgot his roots. He often visited his mentor, Do-yoon, still locked up, sharing news about his gym job and how he stayed true to the training that Do-yoon had once drilled into him. But Do-yoon once urged Woo-sol to quit fighting for good, fearing the gangsters behind Suk-chan, Woo-sol's old rival, would keep coming after him.
듣겠는데 싶지? 6개월 전 일이긴 하지만 조폭들 사이에서 입소문난 배석찬을 네가 이겼어.
Still, knowing how headstrong Woo-sol was, Do-yoon understood his warnings would change nothing. In the end, all he could do was pray and hope trouble wouldn't find him, accepting that Woo-sol would chase his own road no matter the risk. In those 6 months of freedom, the four friends learned a harsh lesson. Life was tough for men with prison records. People kept their distance, their old crimes hanging over them like a dark cloud. Each day brought cold stares and closed doors. But these struggles only tightened their bond. They knew that only someone who had shared the same rough road could truly stand by them. Together, they gave each other the strength and help needed to face a world that seemed set against them. The trust they built behind bars turned into solid ground that held them up outside. Through it all, Woo-sol never skipped a single day of training. He even grew more hooked on the fight, pushing himself like a shark that had to keep moving to stay alive. It was the way Do-yoon had taught him to live, keep driving forward, never stand still, always get stronger to survive. One afternoon at the gym, Woo-sol and Sang-yeob were deep into their usual grind when an MMA fighter named Song-gu showed up. Song-gu needed someone to spar with, but he was so rough that his cousin, who also managed him, had ended up taking the hits. Trying to save himself, the cousin quickly pointed to someone else, and that unlucky person was Woo-sol. Woo-sol didn't want any part of it at first. He knew trouble when he saw it. But the moment Song-gu promised to help him get a shot at turning pro, Woo-sol threw on the gloves without a second thought. The sparring match exploded into a fierce showdown. In the end, Song-gu walked away with a badly sprained wrist. Because of this mess, Woo-sol and Sang-yeob nearly lost their jobs at the gym. That evening, on their way home from work, Woo-sol suddenly spotted Won-jun talking to a man named Dong-gun. Dong-gun was one of many people Won-jun had bullied before prison. Since getting out, Won-jun had made his goal to track down every person he'd hurt and apologize, even keeping a notebook to make sure he missed no one. But saying sorry didn't erase old wounds. Most still carried deep grudges and weren't quick to forgive. Trying to lift his own spirits after the tense meeting, Won-jun dragged Woo-sol along to play a harmless prank on Sung-young at his pizza truck nearby. Just like back in prison, Won-jun and Sung-young couldn't go a day without teasing each other or getting into small scuffles. Sung-young often scratched his head, puzzled how a guy like Won-jun could have such a pretty sister. When Sung-young started joking about looks, Won-jun roped Woo-sol into settling who was better looking between them. Thankfully, Ji-hee showed up just in time to save Woo-sol from that awkward moment. She was an old classmate of Woo-sol's and also helped Won-jun study for his exam. That night, the group shared laughs and enjoyed each other's company, making the most of their time together. But across the city, trouble was brewing in a gangster den posing as a nightlife spot. The place was run by Yu Young, the same man who once pulled Suk-chan into his crew. Now, Yu Young ran illegal underground fights, streaming them live to gamblers and raking in huge money for his operation. That night, a serious problem hit the ring. Cannon, Yu Young's right hand, reported that one of the fighters couldn't make it. It was Song-gu, still hurt from Woo-sol's punch at the gym. Not willing to let the crowd down, Yu Young decided to fight himself. The moment he stepped up, all bets swung to his side. His brutal reputation made sure of that. The moment the fighter saw Yu Young step into the ring, fear took over. Yu Young tried to bait him with a cruel offer, wipe out all his debts if he could land a single punch in 30 seconds. But it was only a trap to showcase Yu Young's savage power. In no time, he crushed his opponent, barely breaking a sweat. After the match, Yu Young had Song-gu dragged in to answer for skipping the fight. He didn't hold back his twisted side. He gave Song-gu one way out. If his manager could keep quiet for 10 seconds while having his hand forced into a pot of boiling soup. However, The manager's screams came almost at once. That failure sealed it. Yu Young handed down their final prize, death. What Oyun feared most finally happened. Cannon dug up the name of the man who put Song-gu out of action, stirring up old shadows in Yu Young's mind. Without wasting a moment, Yu Young hunted down Wu Sol's location and went straight for him. And just like that, the storm they thought they'd left behind came roaring back, more vicious than ever. This was the moment their fragile freedom would be tested, when scars of the past clashed with the fight for tomorrow. This was Shark, the storm. On the way, Yu Young stopped so abruptly that he angered a motorcyclist. In response, he handled the rider with brute force, then kept moving. When he found Wu Sol, Yu Young offered him a spot in his gang. Wu Sol didn't hesitate to turn him down. He made it clear he wasn't like Suk-chan and wouldn't use his skills for crime. He was set on walking the right path. But Yu Young wasn't about to let him go. He saw huge value in Wu Sol and had no plans to back off. The next day, while Wu Sol was training at the gym with his friends, Ji-hee ran into a pregnant woman who looked like she needed help. Always quick to care for others, Ji stepped in without a second thought. But the woman, Hyun, was actually part of Yu Young's plan. Her real job was to lure Ji-hee into a trap, bait meant to pull Wu Sol into Yu Young's grip. It wasn't long before Ji-hee's phone rang Wu Sol. The worry in her voice and odd noises in the background told him something was wrong. His gut pointed straight to Yu Young. Soon, a message arrived with Ji-hee's location, flooding Wu Sol with fear and urgency. Right then, he made up his mind to save her himself, feeling it was his burden to carry. But Wonjun stopped him. He reminded Wu Sol they weren't in this alone. They were brothers who had faced danger together, no matter how dark it got. They soon reached the spot, a bleak, empty place swallowed by shadows. Wasting no time, they split up to cover more ground. Wu Sol and Wonjun took one path, while Sung-young and Sang-yob went another, staying in touch to share any leads. It wasn't long before Wu Sol caught the sound of Ji-hee's phone ringing inside an old building. When he spotted two men closing in on her, he rushed forward and took them down without a second thought. But it was a setup. In seconds, a swarm of Yu Young's men closed in from all sides. Watching from a distance, Sung-young and Sang-yob saw them get taken and quickly tailed the vehicle that hauled their friend away. Wu Sol later woke up, strapped to a chair, ropes cutting into his skin. In front of him stood Yu Young, grinning with cold delight. Yu Young covered Wu Sol's eyes, warning him he was about to enter a brutal mind game. When the blindfold came off, Wu Sol's heart sank. There sat Wonjun and Ji, tied up and helpless, just like him. Right then, Yu Young made it clear this was all punishment for Wu Sol daring to stand against him. He forced Wu Sol into a cruel choice. Pick which friend would live, because only one would make it out alive. Yu Young ordered Hyun to carry out the execution and record every moment as proof, then walked off, leaving Wu Sol drowning in torment. Wu Sol was desperate, trapped by an impossible decision. But Hyun, just as heartless as Yu Young, gave him only 10 seconds to choose. If he failed, she promised to kill them all without a shred of pity. Lost in panic, Wu Sol turned to Wonjun, desperate for guidance on what to do. But Hyun twisted his words, claiming he had picked Wonjun to die. Without hesitation, she drove a knife into Wonjun several times, showing no mercy. Against all odds, bleeding and weak, Wonjun broke free from his ropes. He threw himself at Hyun with every ounce of strength left, then hurried to cut Wu Sol and Ji-hee loose. Together, they raced through the building, desperate to find an exit. But escape was no simple task. Hyun quickly recovered and sent her men after them. Wu Sol and Wonjun fought back hard, dropping one thug after another, but more kept pouring in. Seeing how hopeless it was, Wonjun urged Wu Sol to grab Ji-hee and run, insisting he could hold the line alone. Meanwhile, Wu Sol's escape hit another wall. More of Yu Young's men were waiting outside, ready to strike. But just in time, Sung-young and Sang-yob showed up. Sang-yob jumped in first, using his fighting skills to tear through the thugs. Together, they cleared a path, giving Wu Sol the chance to rush back inside for Wonjun. When Wu Sol reached him, he froze at the sight. Wonjun had fought off every last enemy, but his body was torn up with deep stab wounds. Without delay, they all fled the hideout, though it was clear Wonjun was at the edge. Barely holding on, Wonjun understood his time was up. He used his final breath to urge Wu Sol to keep going, to finish what he started by asking forgiveness from those he once hurt. He wanted the journey toward making things right to continue, even if he couldn't see it through himself. Held close by Wu Sol, Won-jun passed away in quiet peace. The next day, Woo-sol stood at the funeral home where Won-jun was laid to rest, crushed by guilt. As he faced the altar, a young woman suddenly lashed out at him. It was Yoon-jin, Won-jun's sister, who blamed Woo-sol for her brother's death. Her harsh words cut deep, sinking Woo-sol even further into regret. Seeing this, Sung-yong pulled Woo-sol aside to steady him. He told Woo-sol that Won-jun had been truly thankful to meet him, that their bond had given Won-jun purpose and hope. None of this, he said, was Woo-sol's fault. He didn't have to bear it alone. Hearing this slowly opened Yoon-jin's eyes. She began to see that Woo-sol wasn't the one to blame. Meanwhile, Ji-hee, also at the funeral home, noticed something troubling. While on the phone with her mother, she spotted Scar, one of Yoo-young's men, lurking nearby. Worried, she quietly trailed him to find out what he was planning. It turned out the cop handling Won-jun's case was actually on Yoo-young's payroll. As if that wasn't vile enough, Yoo-young even sent a funeral wreath to mock Woo-sol, turning Won-jun's death into a sick joke. Meanwhile, drowning in grief, Woo-sol sat with a notebook listing everyone Won-jun had once hurt. What he didn't realize was his own name was there too. He'd been one of Won-jun's victims back in prison. Though Won-jun never got the chance to say sorry, Woo-sol had already let go of that old pain. With Yoo-young still out there, taunting and threatening them, Woo-sol decided it was time to fight back. To his surprise, Yoon-jin stepped up, eager to avenge her brother. Sung-yong tried to hold her back, worried the plan was too dangerous and not wanting more blood on their hands. But Yoon-jin wasn't just any woman. As a skilled MMA fighter with sharp kickboxing moves, she was ready to stand with them. Together, they remembered Yoo-young had filmed their kidnapping and torture. They set their sights on stealing that footage, proof they could finally use to bring Yoo-young down. With a cheap phone camera hidden in a cardboard box, they set out to find the broadcast room that held the key recordings. Yoon-jin played the part of a delivery worker, handing over a fake package to Yoo-young, while the others geared up for their strike. Once they pinned down the location of the room, they didn't wait. Sung-young's pizza truck was wired to explode, pulling the guards at Yoo-young's base into chaos. That blast gave Woo-sol and his friends the opening they needed. Even though they were badly outnumbered, they charged in without hesitation. Their tight teamwork paid off. One by one, they dropped Yoo-young's men and pushed deeper inside. Then it was time for the next step. Woo-sol broke off on his own to hunt down the recordings, while the others held back the flood of attackers trying to stop them. Soon after, Woo-sol reached the broadcast room with little trouble. But the recording he needed was gone. Yoo-young had already moved it, expecting him to come. To rub it in, Yoo-young played the very footage Woo-sol was hunting for on a huge screen, taunting him. Grinning, he dared Woo-sol to come take it himself.
카메라빨을 잘 받는구나. 영상 갖고 싶으면 가져야지.
Meanwhile, Woo-sol's three friends were locked in brutal fights against Yoo-young's strongest men. Yoon-jin clashed with Hyun, matching her kickboxing against savage street tactics. Sang-yob went toe-to-toe with Cannon, a towering brute with crushing power. At the same time, Sung-yong battled Scar, who fought dirty with hidden blades. Back in the broadcast room, Woo-sol finally came face-to-face with Yoo-young. Acting like it was all a joke, Yoo-young casually handed him the recording, then coldly warned that his next move would go after Woo-sol's family, promising even more pain. Hearing the threat against his family, Woo-sol's fury exploded. He charged at Yoo-young, driven by raw anger. But Yoo-young was on another level. His skill and experience quickly showed. At first, he easily overpowered Woo-sol, leaving him struggling to keep up. Outside the broadcast room, Sung-yong, Sang-yob, and Yoon-jin fought tooth and nail against their tough opponents. It wasn't easy, but their tactics and grit finally won out, dropping Yoo-young's top fighters. Meanwhile, Woo-sol refused to stay down. Memories of Won-jun pushed him to his feet, filling him with new fire. He came back hard, forcing Yoo-young into a corner and even slamming him to the floor. But Yoo-young sprang up fast, and soon they were locked in a savage brawl, trading heavy blows to see who would break first. The fight roared on, every punch and kick landing harder than the last. Finally, Woo-sol locked Yoo-young's arm in a tight hold and snapped it with a brutal crack. Wild with pain and rage, Yoo-young lunged recklessly, nearly throwing himself off the high-rise ledge. But Woo-sol grabbed him at the last second, pulling him back from death. Breathing heavy, Yoo-young spat out that Woo-sol would regret sparing him. But Woo-sol stood his ground. He made it clear he wasn't like Yoo-young. He didn't treat people as toys to break. No matter what, he would hold on to his humanity, even for an enemy. Those words cut deeper than any punch, shattering Yoo-young's pride. With the flash drive in hand, Woo-sol held all the proof needed to tear down Yoo-young's empire. That recording would bring every dark secret to light and end Yoo-young's reign for good. In the days that followed, Woo-sol set out to keep the promise he made to Won-jun. He visited every person Won Jun had once hurt, offering apologies on his friend's behalf. Many still carried deep wounds and turned him away, but at least one name on that list had already forgiven Won Jun, Woo-sol himself, who had long moved past the pain. Woo-sol also went to see Do-yoon in prison, sharing his decision to keep fighting and chase life as an MMA athlete. He even told Do-yoon he wanted to face him in the ring one day, once his mentor was free, hoping to prove he was truly worthy. Meanwhile, Yu-young landed in the same prison block as Do-yoon, finally locked up because of the evidence Woo-sol fought so hard to get. Not long after, Woo-sol's dream of stepping into a professional MMA ring was no longer just talk. He was already training for a tournament in September, unaware this event would bring him back together with his 3 closest friends side by side in the world of combat. The story closes with hope, pointing to a future where these 4 wouldn't just be ex-cons or men haunted by their past, but true fighters, chasing clear goals with unshakable resolve. So the moral of the story is, never skip your workout, because one day you might have to be an MMA fighter while kneading dough to make your friend's pizza the perfect one.